My name is Heather. It's hard to admit, but honestly, I've never had much confidence in my looks. However, I do believe I'm a friendly person. Some might say it's a bit late, but I was able to get married in my late 30s. I thought to myself, I can't believe someone like me could get married, but that happy life did not last long. Who would have thought it would turn out like this? I was a woman who was never popular since my childhood. I wasn't particularly cute and I didn't have any special talents that drew attention. I was just average in both academics and sports. I simply wasn't the type to stand out. I met my husband in a certain diner. It was located a little away from the town center, but it was a discreetly thriving place, a kind of hidden gem. I loved that diner and went there often. It was a family-run business, managed by an elderly couple and their son. I would go there alone for a meal at least once a week, and over time, I began to interact with other regular customers. Although I was a shy person, thanks to this place, I was able to become more sociable. To put it simply, the son of the diner's owner, a man named Robert, was the one who would become my future husband. Robert and I gradually became closer, and one day, he asked me out. "Are you sure about me? I'm not that cute, you know." I had never had any serious romantic relationships. I can't say I never had any men in my life, but when my friends talked about love, I felt left out. But Robert told me, "I think you're cute when you're smiling and chatting with the other customers in the diner." By that time, I was already 36 years old. I was always worried if an old lady like me was good enough, but Robert just kept complimenting me. Once I realized there was someone who thought of me that way, I began to fall for Robert too. So when he asked me to be his girlfriend, I had no reason to say no. I felt incredibly loved. From that moment, our relationship was on the track to marriage. Robert's parents, who were also the owners of the diner, spoke kindly to me. Then, I finally got a marriage proposal. I couldn't believe someone like me could end up in such a happy situation. It felt like I was about to float off the ground. However, I would soon realize that my elation was nothing more than a terrible misunderstanding. By the time Robert proposed to me, I was already 38. When we got married, Robert, who had been living with his parents, moved into a rental apartment with me. At first, I thought we might have to live with his parents. I was a bit hesitant about that, so I was really glad when Robert suggested otherwise. It's not that I disliked his parents, but after all, they were still strangers. However, there was something Robert discussed with me. "Heather, I want you to help with the diner." Apparently, running the diner with their current staff was quite a challenge. If his parents were still young, it would have been fine, but it seems their strength started to decline after they crossed 60. His parents seemed grateful that I would join the diner. But I had my own job, so when he asked, I was really conflicted. I work in an office administration job. As a shy person, I had never considered working in the service industry. So, the idea of working as a diner staff felt like a high hurdle for me. But Robert told me, "Heather, you can talk to the customers, just like you have been. That's all you need." Hearing him say that, I made up my mind. I decided to quit my office job and switch to working at Robert's family diner. My coworkers supported me, and I put my all into starting my new life as Robert's wife and a service staff member at the diner. Initially, I was very nervous, but once I got started, I got used to it quickly, thanks to the many familiar regular customers that Robert mentioned. Gradually, I became able to greet other new customers brightly, and slowly started to gain confidence. Every day I work, I realize how diverse our customers are. We have regulars who always come in with their subordinates and order a lot of food, groups who come here after enjoying a round of golf as a regular routine, and others. And these customers accept me, making comments like, "Oh? A new staff member? Did you hire someone?" Or, "Oh wow, you're Robert's wife. That's a surprise. You're quite a looker, aren't you?" Robert's parents even said, "It's nice that Robert got such a pretty wife. Robert, you're a lucky man." I was thrilled to be complimented as being pretty or cute, even if it was just flattery, as I had never received such compliments before. So that's how my work started to settle in. However, being a service staff at a diner is quite time-consuming. Since we are open for lunch, I usually arrive at the diner around 10 in the morning and leave to go home around 10 at night after dinner service. We do have one day off per week, but on that day, I have to do a considerable amount of housework. Actually, Robert's parents go home right after the last order is taken at night. So it's just us doing the cleanup, and I tend to feel tired after such days. At first, I managed to cook dinner for us when I got home, but it gradually became more difficult. I started to rely on supermarket ready-made meals more often. After all, Robert prefers to have a relaxed meal at home, so I think this is unavoidable. I thought that since we are a restaurant, we could just prepare and eat something simple at the diner before heading home. However, as the days went by, Robert began to talk less and less to me. Whether at work or while eating at home, he speaks only when necessary, and he's become rather curt. It's only been a little over a year since we got married, and he's stopped touching me altogether. I finally said to him, "Hey, you've been looking gloomy all the time. If you have something to say, why don't you just say it?" Then, Robert said simply, "Huh? Nothing in particular. Just thinking that we're always eating supermarket ready-made meals food." I was a bit taken aback by his response. But I, too, am doing all the housework, and I want to take some shortcuts when it comes to cooking. After all, I'm tired after a day's work. When Robert gets home, all he does is take a shower first and then have a beer. I was honestly irritated by his comment, but I didn't want to make a big deal out of it, so I suggested, "Well, why don't we use the diner's ingredients and take them home to cook?" But for some reason, Robert became disgruntled. "What? That means I'd end up cooking, since I'm in charge of the kitchen." That's how he snapped back at me. "Well, it's for us to eat, so I can help too." But even when I said that, Robert stayed silent and spoke even less than before. I didn't want to start a fight over this, but there are things I can't give up on. If I push myself to cook dinner here, it might affect my work at the diner. So I tried to cook as much as I could, and on my days off, I would make time to prepare meals, but otherwise, I tried not to think about it too much. However, since then, everyone's attitude towards me at work changed. When taking orders, Robert's parents and John, who used to cheerfully say thank you, now only respond with a listless okay. Also, when customers came to consult about the dishes, my in-laws and husband started to turn them down, which they never did before. Since I'm the one who has to tell the customers, it seems like Robert's parents and John don't care about the customers at all. "That's gonna take too much time. What's that person thinking, with other customers waiting? Heather, you should know better. Use your head." They even started shouting insults at me. I, who was taken aback, could only apologize. Yet, when it comes to things that customers tell my mother-in-law, my husband is all too eager to jump on it. Furthermore, when there are no customers around, Robert's mother suddenly started speaking to me from a position of superiority. "You're a wife now, you have to do proper wife things. You seem to be slacking." I didn't even have time to sleep back in my day. I guess she heard from Robert that I'm not cooking homemade meals for him. But it's not like I'm slacking off. "Excuse me, but I'm working as hard as I can, and it's not like I'm slacking off," I retorted, hoping my mother-in-law would understand. But she wouldn't have any of it. Instead, she would spitefully retort, "You're quite capable of arguing back, aren't you? I feel sorry for Robert." Then my father-in-law stepped in and told me, "Robert is the heir to this shop, so you need to take care of him properly." I was on the verge of tears hearing that. Was I really deserving of such treatment? I kept questioning myself. Was I in the wrong? I'd rather believe it's them who are in the wrong. I'm starting to detest working in this restaurant, despite the fact that many of our wonderful customers treat me well. Thinking about them, I don't want to quit. "Heather, you're doing great today. You're also pretty, so I couldn't help but come again." I never imagined there would be so many people saying such kind things to me in my life. But each time a customer spoke nicely to me, my mother-in-law would say to me, "Don't get carried away. There's no way someone like you could be called pretty." She had grown comfortable uttering such cutting remarks. Under such circumstances, the kind words of the customers became my only solace. Every day is a struggle over whether I should quit or somehow carve out a path for myself. One thing is certain, I no longer have any love for Robert. To put it bluntly, we're just living together like a couple in name only, and I've come to think of my in-laws as nothing less than devils. I've started to realize that the good first impressions everyone gave were nothing but deceptions. How long will this go on? As I spent each day contemplating this, the answer was led by Robert himself. As time passed, Robert suddenly started coming home late. While he used to come home with me in silence after cleaning up, recently, he's been letting me go home first, and he comes home about an hour later. Curious as to what he was up to, I asked him after a few days of this pattern.
Hey, you've been coming home late lately, what's up?
To which Robert replied, without looking at me, it's nothing. I'm just eating dinner at my parents' place. And then went straight to take a bath. Upon hearing this unexpected answer, I felt a wave of emotion stronger than sadness or loneliness. It was anger and indignation. So, he preferred meals that someone else put effort into? I was filled with an unbearable feeling. I was sure that Robert no longer had any love for me. At the same time, I made a decision. To quit the restaurant. It seemed that to Robert and his family, having someone to add to the numbers was more important than who the person was. They just wanted someone to continue the family business. In that case, it didn't have to be me, did it? But I guess because I'm a clumsy woman when it comes to love, it was easy for Robert to approach me. Thinking about it that way, there's no reason for us to be together. And so, I decided to act. The next day, I worked at the restaurant and as usual, I was scolded. But for me, it was just a matter of enduring until the opportunity arose. They likely didn't realize that I was just biding my time. But that opportunity came quickly. While I was casually chatting with an important customer as usual, I was called by my mother-in-law from the back.
You, always loafing around. Are you just getting carried away? You really need to realize how ugly you are, she said with an exasperated look.
But I immediately responded, but the customers like me. I was even told that they'd be in trouble if I quit. Upon my cheerful reply, my mother-in-law angrily retorted even more.
Huh? What are you saying? We don't care if you quit at any moment. We think you're just in the way, can't you see that? If you can quit, then do so. We're just employing you out of kindness.
She spoke so confidently. Perhaps my mother-in-law doesn't think I will quit so easily. After all, if I quit, I would lose my income and finding a new job at my age would be difficult. And perhaps she thinks that I won't quit because I feel bad for my husband. Of course, that's what I was thinking. So I said to my mother-in-law, understood, I'm sorry. I spoke too much and immediately got back to work. That made the most of my first opportunity. In the end, I kept working at the store as usual and my mother-in-law probably became confident that I couldn't quit. And before I knew it, I turned 40. On my birthday, I worked as usual, went home before my husband, and he came home after eating dinner at his parents' house. There wasn't a single word of birthday congratulations. Normally, you'd want to say something to a husband who doesn't even offer words of celebration on your birthday. But it's fine, it's okay. All I have to do now is wait for the time to come. But then Robert said something that completely trumped my thoughts. On my very own birthday, he announced out of the blue, I'm going to move back in with my parents. After all, I just love my mom's cooking. I was taken aback, to say the least. Robert seemed to have no qualms about it whatsoever. But I quickly regained my composure and calmly replied, oh, is that so? I understand. From the next day on, Robert really didn't come home. I won't lie, I was surprised, but I reassessed the situation and thought, it was just a matter of time, and proceeded with my plan. I went to the restaurant as usual, talked with the customers as usual, and was berated by Robert and my mother-in-law as usual. Everything was the same. Except for these last 2 days. On the third day of living apart, I had a person constantly calling my phone. It was Robert.
Hey! What are you doing? Where are you?
Of course, he would be surprised. I hadn't shown up at the restaurant even an hour after my usual starting time.
Where am I? I'm at my parents' house. I had something to talk about with them, I answered honestly.
Robert was furious.
What are you talking about? Hurry up and come here. We're past the opening time.
It was clear he was panicking. But I just said one thing.
Huh? But your mom told me I could quit any time. I thought I'd agreed to that.
With that, Robert seemed utterly thrown into confusion. I may have broken some rules, but it's true I was told I could quit any time. If I've broken the rules, so has my mother-in-law. But the real torment for Robert and the others was yet to come. When I stopped going to the restaurant, they must have thought they'd be super busy and short-handed. But it was quite the opposite. The customers suddenly stopped coming. The regulars who always came to the restaurant didn't show up at all that day. The place was much quieter than usual. They must have found this strange as it was quiet during both lunch and dinner. Nobody came, not even the daily regulars. Something must have felt off. Robert seems to have called one of the regulars to check. The customer then said, "Just by me not showing up for one day, you get the feeling something's off, huh? I really underestimated you. Not just you, but the restaurant as well. Even though you had such a wonderful wife, how could you treat her that way? I don't want to go to a place that treats a fellow worker so horribly. I doubt I'll ever go again, but good luck." Robert, completely shocked by this, shared the news with his parents and started calling various regular customers. But, as expected, everyone was saying the same thing. In reality, many customers had cared for me since I started working at the restaurant. "You know, it feels like you've been looking tired lately. Is work being hard on you? You usually have such a lovely smile, but I've noticed that it's been less frequent lately." I was told this by many people. At first, I was dismissive, but I couldn't resist the warmth of everyone around me. I suppose I was reaching my limit too. So, I opened up about the things that were happening to me with Robert and his parents. Upon hearing this, my regulars were shocked. "Really? That's horrendous. To think they were like that. No wonder we heard strange noises from the kitchen from time to time. We thought the place had improved significantly since you started working. If you were to quit, we wouldn't come here anymore. It's sad to see you leave, but if you've hit your limit, we understand. Just let us know." They all stood by my side. I couldn't stop crying. After receiving Robert's announcement of separation, I decided to quit. I wanted to say goodbye to my dear customers and to uphold my promise. I told them I was leaving. Everyone, from the regulars to those who spent a lot of money or brought many others with them. I just told my story honestly, and indeed, they stopped coming to the restaurant. This was certainly a heavy blow to the business. But it just goes to show how badly Robert and his parents treated me. The customers made that judgment. Only Robert and his parents failed to realize it. The next day, and the day after, Robert kept calling me. The number of customers had dwindled, and if this continued, the restaurant might need to close. I ignored his calls at first. After a week, I reluctantly picked up because I had something to say.
Please! I really am sorry. I want you to come back. I don't mind if you want to eat takeout from the supermarket, and if you're tired, you can take more days off. He was clearly begging me.
However, I had no intention of returning to Robert. But I had one matter to settle, so I went to the restaurant during the midday break. His parents were there too, begging me to come back. "Heather, you can come back. You see, we're old." Robert also said, "You've come back. That's great." I did not return. "I just came to give you this. Take care," I said, handing him the business card of my divorce lawyer.
Hey, wait! Divorce? What do you mean?
Robert's panic was as if he had seen something beyond this world. But I didn't have the emotional energy to answer his question properly.
That's what I mean. If you refuse to accept it, you can prepare a lawyer or whatever is necessary.
With that, I left the restaurant. I don't know if he heard my last words, but the divorce went through quickly, and I was thankfully freed from the oppressive control of Robert and his parents. Since then, all the talk about Robert's restaurant has been nothing but bad rumors. In fact, after a few months, the rumors themselves disappeared. There were whispers of unpaid bills to suppliers and landlords. People who spotted Robert and his parents said they looked gaunt as if they had eaten something bad. Well, they never bothered to understand my feelings. In return, I guess people no longer wanted to understand them. On the other hand, I started living in a new apartment. I became single again at this age, but I have the ability to communicate with a variety of people, so I should be fine. For now, I'm full of optimism and ready to enjoy my new life.